this is Rodelo Jr. Niaglungay, and this time I will be the one to discuss to you the topics covered in general science. However, we will just focus on the topics in biology or the life sciences. Okay, so let us now start. So, I will be the one to again discuss to you about the natural science, because there are also other sciences like social science that are not part of the natural science. So the natural science is comprised of the life sciences, or what we call the biology, and then we have the physical sciences, also composed of chemistry, physics, earth science, and astronomy. So again, we will just focus this time in biology. Okay, so biology, no, it is from the Greek word bios and logos, which literally means the study of life. No, it is Aristotle who is considered as the father of biology. Now there are a lot of branches of biology, so let us name them one by one. So first we have the anatomy, which is the study of body parts and their location, and then physiology, the study of functions of the body parts, and then we have biochemistry, the study of chemical processes and transformations in living organisms, biotechnology, which is the technological application of the use of biological systems to modify and make products. For example, of a biotechnology product is the BT corn or the Bacillus thuringiensis. Okay, we will talk more about BT corn later. Another branch of biology is the cell biology or cytology. Okay, it is the study of cells. Ecology, the study of ecosystems, which is the interaction between an organism and its environment. We also have evolution, which is the study of the changes in the inherited characteristics or traits of a population or organisms. And we also have genetics, the study of genes and heredity. We also have gerontology, which is the study of aging. And then we also have histology, the study of tissues. Immunology, the study of all aspects of the immune system in all organisms. We also have marine biology, which focuses on plants and animals that are found in the ocean and other um, marine ecosystems. Okay. We also have microbiology, which is the study of microorganisms, and then we have mycology, the study of fungi, parasitology, the study of parasites and their host, and then we have phycology, which is the study of algae. Another one is taxonomy, which is the practice and science of classification and naming of organisms. Botany, the study of plants. Virology, the study of viruses. And then we have zoology, which is the study of animals. And then within zoology, we have ethology, which is the study of animal behavior. Herpetology, which is the study of reptiles and amphibians. And then we have ichthyology, which is the study of fishes. And then we also have mammalogy, which is the study of mammals. And lastly, we have the entomology, which is the study of insects. So those are the branches of biology. However, there are still a lot of sub-branches of these main branches of biology. And if you want to know them, you can just Google it. Okay, so let us now proceed with the discovery of the cell and the important names to remember. Okay, let's have first Robert Hooke, who first view a non-living cell on his compound microscope. Okay, so he used a cork, no. When we say cork, it's the kini ang sa una ang taklob sa kini ang mga bottles are kahoy pa man, no? Wala pa may plastic, wala pa may tansan, no. So cork is just kini ang kina sa mga wine gani, no. Mo na ginahimo nga taklob sa mga botelya. Okay, so it's a piece of kini ang wood, no, and then he sliced a thin slice of that piece of wood, and then he viewed it under his microscope. And this one here on the left side of the screen is mao iyang observe. Okay, so he termed those kini ang murag mga selda sa monastery nga iyang na observe ng mga unsa ni structures in the microscope as cells. Okay, so he published all of his kini ang findings on his compound microscope in his book called the Micrographia. The next important name for you to remember is Anton van Leeuwenhoek, who used a single microscope to observe pond water and other things. And then those things that he observed in his single lens microscope, no, especially those that he observed in pond water ng mga specimen, he called them animalcules or little animals. And then we have Robert Brown, no? He was the one who discovered the cell nucleus. And then we have Felix Dujardin, in which he termed the living substance within the cell as the sarcode. So later, sarcode was called by John Evangelista Perkinji as protoplasm, no, in 1839. Okay, so let us talk also about the development of the cell theory, because a lot of questions in Gen Ed is naapoy mga um, it talks about or it asks about the postulates of the cell theory. Okay, so it was Matthias Leiden, a German lawyer who is also a botanist, no, who concluded after a lot of experiments that plants are made up of cells. It is followed by his colleague Theodor Schwann, okay, who also published a comprehensive report on the cellular basis of life. That means he also um, found out that animals are also kini ang made up of cells. And then we have the third person who is also responsible for the development of the cell theory. It was Rudolf Virchow. It was in which he is also a German, no, a pathologist. So Virchow proposed that cells can only arise by division of pre-existing cell. Okay, so see, Virchow was the first one to coin the term cell cycle or cell division. Okay, so these are the postulates or the assumptions of the cell theory. First, cells are the basic unit of life. Second, every organism is made up of cells. And then lastly, every cell comes from um, pre-existing cells. So all of this knowledge that we have right now about cells, we cannot attain them or we cannot have those knowledge without the invention of the microscope. Okay, ano ba yung microscope? So microscope is a tool that produces an enlarged image of something very small. Now, it is thought at that time during its first production, it is thought to be the scientist's magic tool. Okay? However, sino ba yung una, no, or considered as the first inventor of the microscope? Okay? It was the Dutch lens maker Zacharias Janssen, no? Ang una or um, considered as the one who first invented the first microscopes nga mga prototypes, no, together with his father Hans Janssen. Now let's talk about the types of microscope. First, we have the light microscope, which uses a light beam and it has a magnification of up to 2,000 times. It has two types. We have the simple microscope, which only have one lens, and then we have the compound microscope, which have two or more lenses. The next type of microscope is what we call the electron microscope. So it uses an electron beam and it can magnify up to 10 million times. We have three types of electron microscope. First is the scanning electron microscope, which is more on surface scan. Next, we have the transmission electron microscope, which is more on inner structure. So if you would like to look at this inner structure of an organelle, you can use a transmission electron microscope. And then the last one is the scanning tunneling electron microscope, which is a hybrid of scanning and transmission electron microscope. So very important to remember, if you want to observe a living cell, you cannot use an electron microscope because it can kill, or it will kill the the living cell if you're going to put it under an electron microscope. So if you're going to observe a living cell, you just have to use a light microscope. Okay, so electron microscope is for those specimen na naka-preserved na siya. Okay, not living. There are also important parameters, no, in microscopy that you need to know. Okay, first is the magnification. No, it is the ratio of an object's image to its real size. Second, we have the resolution, which is a measure of the clarity of the image na imuhang makuha under the microscope. And then we have the contrast, which is the difference in brightness between the light and dark areas of the image. Okay, now let's talk about more on the cell and its parts. Okay, so what is a cell? A cell is the smallest unit of living thing, and it is the basic building blocks of all organisms. Okay, so cells, no, again, are the basic building blocks of organisms. Cells which have the same function, they group together to form tissues. Okay, and then these tissues, if they function together, they have the same role. They group together to form organs, and then organs, different organs, which functions together. They group together uh, to make an organ system. Okay? Example ng organ system, yung mga circulatory system, respiratory system, and all of the systems of an organism's body work together to form an organism. Okay? So, again, a cell is a smallest unit of a living thing. It is the basic building blocks of organisms. It is also called the smallest unit of life, and it is the fundamental unit of life. Down, there are generally two types of cells. We have the prokaryotic cell, which do not contain a nucleus. Again, do not contain a nucleus and do not have membrane-bound organelles. Okay, so they have their DNA in a region called nucleoid, and all prokaryotic cells are unicellular, and that means only one cell is one organism. Okay, so examples of prokaryotic cells are bacteria and mga archaea. Okay, the other type of cell is the eukaryotic cell, which contain a true nucleus and have membrane-bound organelles. So, mostly larger than prokaryotes ang eukaryotic cells. Example ng eukaryotic cells is yung mga plant cells, animal cells, fungi cells, and protists. Okay? So, eukaryotic cells can be unicellular, as in the cases of protists, some protists, and it can also be a multicellular like humans, plants, and fungi. Okay, so these are the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So as you can see here, prokaryotes do not have a nucleus, and it does not have also membrane-bound organelles like the chloroplast, the Golgi apparatus, the mitochondrion, and other um, membrane-bound organelles that are found only in eukaryotes. Okay? However, there are basic features of all cells. Now, that means these features of cells can be seen or can be observed both in eukaryotic and prokaryotic types of cells. First one is that all cells, okay, has a plasma membrane or a cell membrane, no, regardless if it is a prokaryotic cell or a eukaryotic cell. All of them, they have cell membrane. Next one is that all cells have cytoplasm, okay, and then all cells have genetic material, and then the last one, all cells have basic replicating and protein-making machineries like ribosomes. Okay? So, si bacteria or si prokaryotes, naagyapon sila ay ribosomes to make protein. Now, let's talk more about the cellular parts, no? Yung mga cellular organelles that are found in eukaryotic cells. First, let's have the plasma membrane. Okay, this is the plasma membrane here. The plasma membrane functions as a selective barrier of the cell. No, it is semi-permeable. That means not all materials can pass through in the cell membrane. Okay, so it controls the passage of nutrients and waste. It is the boundary between the inside of the cell and its external environment. Next, we have the nucleus, which is the genetic library of the cell. So dito makikita yung DNA natin inside the nucleus. Okay, so it contains most of the genes to or the genetic material natin, which is the DNA or the deoxyribonucleic acid in the eukaryotic cell. Okay, so si nucleus pod is um, the command center of the cell. Okay, so it regulates all the activities inside the cell. So it is the largest organelle in an animal cell, and it contains nucleolus inside which synthesize ribosomes. Next, we have the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is the region between the nuclear membrane and the cell membrane. So we have here the nuclear membrane. Let me have a pointer. So we have here the nuclear membrane, and then this one here is the no, it's the cell membrane here, and then this one is the nuclear membrane. So the region between them is what we call the cytoplasm. Okay? So in the cytoplasm, diyan nato makita ang mga cellular organelles that are suspended. Okay? However, yung jelly-like fluid that is in the cytoplasm, we call that one as the cytosol. Okay, so the cytoplasm naman, it is where most life processes occur, and as what I have said kanina, it is where the organelles are located. Okay, so it is composed of water, salts, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and other chemicals that are found inside the cell. Next, we have the ribosomes, which are the protein factories in the cell. Okay, so they carry out protein synthesis, no? That is why they are called protein factories. Now we have pre-ribosomes. Yung mga pre-ribosomes, they are ribosomes that is found on the cytoplasm of the cell. No, they produce proteins needed in the cytosol, and then we have bound ribosomes that are attached in their rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so they are the one responsible for production of proteins that is integrated in the membrane and for export outside the cell. Okay, so we have here the endoplasmic reticulum, which is the biosynthetic factory. So endoplasmic reticulum has two types, no? The smooth and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So the ER is continuous with the nuclear envelope. As you can see here, nagsumpay na no ang nuclear envelope with the membrane of the ER or the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so it is a folded membrane that serves as channels through which materials are transported in the cell. Okay, and then we have the Golgi apparatus, which is the shipping and receiving center of the cell. So it manufactures, processes, and packages certain macromolecules that are used inside or outside of the cell. So it is the packaging factories of the cell. Next, we have the mitochondria, which is responsible for the chemical energy conversion. It is considered as the powerhouse of the cell. So it converts food molecules into energy in the form of ATP or adenosine triphosphate through cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is the process that releases energy from food, specifically from glucose. Okay, so again, ATP or adenosine triphosphate is the energy currency of the cell. Next, we have the lysosomes. Okay, these are digestive compartments in our cells. Okay, they are also known as suicidal bag of the cell, garbage collector. So it is a membranous sac of strong hydrolytic enzymes. No, that means it contains a strong hydrolytic enzymes. No, and these enzymes are responsible for the digestion of bacteria and other foreign substances, um, and worn out cell nga iyahang gina-digest inside the cell. So si lysosome ang responsible sa pagpatay no sa mga bacteria or mga foreign substances nga musulod sa atuang cell, and also it is also responsible for the destruction of mga tigulang na mga organelles no in the cell that are not functioning anymore. Okay, so siya ang ga-destroy atong mga parts of the cell pod nga that are not useful na. And then we have the chloroplast now, which is the one responsible for capturing light energy from the sun. Okay, so it contains a chlorophyll, which is a green pigment. No, so si chlorophyll is the pigment found in plants. Now there are types of chlorophyll. No, there's no need for you to know them because this is Gen Edman. Okay? So it is found in plants but not in animals. So walang chloroplast na, sani, walay photosynthetic pigment ang mga animals. That is why they cannot produce, or we cannot produce our own food, because we do not have a chlorophyll which can harvest energy from the sun. Okay? So chloroplasts are the sites of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is the entire process of capturing light energy to produce food energy-rich organic molecules or glucose from carbon dioxide and water. So that is why we have here in the name photosynthesis. Photo means light. Synthesis means putting together. So that means putting together carbon dioxide and water using light energy to produce glucose. Okay? So these are the needed materials no in photosynthesis. We have the sunlight, which is the source of energy. We have water, and then we have carbon dioxide. So we have also the products of photosynthesis, which is mainly glucose, and then we have another product, what we call the waste product of chloroplast, which is oxygen. Okay, so again, the end product or the main product of photosynthesis is sugar or glucose. So this is the complete chemical equation of the process photosynthesis. So we have here unom ka carbon dioxide, no? 6 molecules of carbon dioxide is needed to um, combine with 6 molecules of water using light energy from the sun to produce glucose. This one here is the chemical formula of glucose and oxygen. Next, we have the cell wall. Okay, the cell wall is located outside the cell membrane, which is also a protective layer of the cell in addition to the cell membrane. Okay, so it is found mainly on plants, in bacteria, and also in fungi. So yung composition ng plant cell, composition ng plant cell wall is what we call the cellulose. Sa bacterial cell wall naman, ang composition niya is peptidoglycan, and then in the fungal cell wall it is made up of chitin. Okay. Next, we have vacuoles. Okay. So these are found in plants, no? Especially yung central vacuole, this one here. Central vacuole is the largest ang organelle found in plant cells. Okay, so it holds reserves of important organic compounds and water, and it can take up to 30% to 90% of the plant cells volume. Okay, so vacuoles are also found in animal cells but smaller nga mga vacuole, like the food vacuole, which is responsible for ang enclosing food materials inside the cell. Okay, so we have here the tonoplast. No? The tonoplast is the name for the membrane in the vacuole. Next, we have cytoskeleton, which is the mechanical support at saka it is made up of network of fibers. Okay, so again, si cytoskeleton provides mechanical support in the cell, and it is made up of network of fibers. So we have types of cytoskeleton. First, we have microfilament, which is made up of a protein called actin. And then we have the intermediate filament, which is made up of a protein called keratin. And then we have the microtubules, which is made up of proteins called tubulin. Okay, so microfilaments or actin filaments are the thinnest part of the cytoskeleton and are used to give shape to the cell and support all of its internal parts. So they are essential for cytokinesis or the division of the cytoplasm of the cells, no? And it is also responsible for amoeboid movement, no, using the pseudo feet of the amoeba ng mga organisms, and also responsible for the changes in the cell shape. Next, we have the cilium or the cilia, no, which is a hair-like structure of the cell. No? As you can see here, this is the cilia, okay, na makita just outside the cell membrane of a cell. Okay, so cilia are found in paramecium, which is this one here. This is a paramecium nga cell in bacteria and also in humans, specifically in the fallopian tube or in the lungs of the humans na ay mga cilia na atong makita dito. Okay, so we also have the flagellum. Okay, this one here, murag ikog, no? So it is a whip-like structure in the cell. It can be found in some bacteria also, in your blena and also in the sperm cell. No, only the sperm cell is the flagellated type of cell nga nasa humans. Okay, so other cells in humans do not have flagellum. Okay, again, the sperm cell is the only cell in the human body that is flagellated or contains flagellum. Next, we have the vesicles. Okay, the vesicles carry materials in the inside and to the outside of the cell. So we have certain types of vesicles now. We have the transport vesicles, which move materials within the cell. And then we have secretory vesicles. No, it secretes materials or move materials outside of the cell through a process called exocytosis. Now we have here um, the movement of materials from endoplasmic reticulum to Golgi apparatus. Ang responsible sa pag-move ana ng mga materials is what we call the transport vesicles. Okay, because they transport materials or move materials within the cell. Okay, now here naman, as you can see, na ay vesicle nga gi-produce si Golgi apparatus, and then that vesicle is pagawas siya og materials outside the cell. So this type of vesicle is a secretory vesicle because it secretes materials padulong sa gawas sa cell. Okay, so let us compare plant cell versus animal cells. Okay, in plant cell, walay centriole, walay cilia, no lysosome. It has cell wall, it has central vacuole, and it has chloroplast. Si animal cell naman has centrioles, has cilia, has lysosome. However, wala siya cell wall, wala siya central vacuole, but naa siya food vacuole. And then, animals do not have chloroplast. Okay? So, let us also talk about cellular transport because kasagaran gagawas po ni sa Gen Ed nga science. Okay? So we have two types of cellular transport. We have the passive transport and we have the active transport. So passive transport do not require energy. Active transport requires energy. Okay? So let's talk first about passive transport. Again, passive transport do not require energy for materials to be transported outside or inside of the cell. Okay, so passive transport is a diffusion of a substance across a membrane with no energy investment. Okay, carbon dioxide, water, and oxygen, they can easily diffuse or pass through the plasma membrane. Okay? So passive transport moves from high to low concentration or in accordance with concentration gradient. Ano ba yung concentration gradient, no? Kung asa ang high concentration, let's say for example, taas or high ang concentration sa water outside of the cell compared sa inside the cell, yung movement ng water will be from outside of the cell to the inside of the cell para magkaroon ng balance ng concentration ng water, okay, between the inside of the cell and its external environment. Again, kung as ang daghan, no, from high concentration to low concentration. So, the passive transport can be diffusion or a simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, okay, which requires the help of a protein, or osmosis, which is a type of diffusion of water. Okay, passive transport again can be a diffusion. Ano ba yung diffusion? Diffusion is the tendency of molecules of any substance to spread out evenly into the available na space. See, for example here, the diffusion of these dye molecules, no, in the water in this container here. So if you're going to drop a dye molecule in the water, no, si dye molecule, after nimo siya i-drop, is concentrated pa siya in this area here. However, after some time, no, it will diffuse or it will spread evenly in the area of the water or entire volume of the water. Okay, so nag-diffuse or nagkatag ang kiniang molecules sa dye. Then we have the facilitated diffusion. As what I have said kanina, it needs the help of a certain protein. Okay, it is a type of passive transport aided by transport or channel ng protein. Okay, so a transport protein speed up the movement of molecules across the plasma membranes. Okay, so we have here the cell membrane. As you can see, there are certain structures embedded in the cell membrane. Now, we have here the channel protein, which is responsible for facilitated diffusion. Dinhi aga-agi ang mga materials that cannot easily pass through in the lipid bilayer of the cell membrane. Okay? Another type of passive transport is the osmosis. No? It is the diffusion of water. So, it is the movement of water across a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, it is affected by the concentration gradient of dissolved substances called the solution's tonicity. Now, ano ba yung solution's tonicity? Okay, so solution's tonicity, there are three types now of solution's tonicity. We have the isotonic solution. This one here, unsay nahitabo during isotonic solution, it is when the concentrations of solutes outside the cell is the same as it is inside the cell. When we talk about solutes, kini sila ang tunawon, no, or matunaw, no, in the solution, no. Solute here is it could be any material, no. It could be a glucose, it could be salt, okay, nga pwede i-diffuse inside or outside of the cell. Okay? So again, isotonic solution, yung concentration ng solute or tunawunon outside the cell is the same as it is inside the cell. So yung effect niya is no net movement of water. Okay? So si water here is the universal, considered as the universal solvent. So siya ang mutunaw ni solute. Okay? So because the same concentration inside at outside of the cell sa solute, so that means walay net movement sa water. Again, kay parehas naman kadaghanon. So that means dili necessary na si water mo pagawas siya or musulod siya padulong sa cell para tunawon ang mas daghan nga solute inside baka or outside of the cell. Because again, yung concentration ng solute is the same in the inside at saka in the outside of the cell. Okay, so in animal cell, pag nasa isotonic solution ng animal cell, normal lang yung structure ng animal cells. So we have here the red blood cell, no? So that means yung movement inside and outside of the yung movement ng water padulong sa sulod sa cell, pagawas sa cell is just the same, no? That is why walay no net movement ng water. However, in plant cells, no, the same lang gyapon mahitabo, flaccid, no, or normal lang gyapon ang isa ka cell under isotonic solution. So we have also the hypertonic solution. Ayan. So anong sa nahitabo di ay during hypertonic solution. So in hypertonic solution, the concentration of solutes outside the cell is greater than inside the cell. That means daghan og solute, daghan og tunawunon outside the cell, no? Para matunaw siya og dali, ang ginabuhat sa cell is magpagawas siya og water, no? Para tabangan ang external environment to dissolve the kini ang solute outside the cell para mapasulod sila og dali sa cell membrane or inside the cell. Okay? So, in hypertonic solution, water will go out of the cell will lose water, okay? Mo na nga mohiyos siya. And then we have here our clue, no? Pag ang isa ka cell is naa siya sa hypertonic solution, no? Mag-undergo siya og plasmolysis, mag-shrivel siya, or ma-shrink siya, or it will become dehydrated. So, I have here kini ang inyo alang yung hinumduman, no? Inyong hinumduman if maka-encounter mo og questions regarding solutions tonicity. Okay? Pag mayroon tag hypertonic solution, pag ang cell ibutang sa hypertonic solution, ang effect anak ang cell is muhiyos siya. Okay? We have here hyper na ay H o E sa hyper, hiyos ang cell, no? Another term for hiyos is mag-plasmolysis siya, mag-undergo plasmolysis, mag-shrivel, or mag-shrink, or it become dehydrated. Okay? So, as you can see here in the red blood cell, no, nag-shrivel or nag-shrink ang red blood cell because it lose water. Okay? The same with the case with plant cells, no, ning hiyos or nalunay ang unsa na ang plant cell because it loses water. Now we have the last one, the hypotonic solution. Okay, remember this one, kining naka-underline yung mga letters, no, hypotonic solution. So say mahitabo during hypotonic solution. So the concentration of solutes outside the cell is less than or lower inside the cell. That means mas daghan og solute sa sulod sa cell. Okay? Daghan og tunawunon inside the cell. Mao na nga musulod or mo-enter ang water from the external environment padulong sa inside the cell para tabangan ang cell na pod sa pag-dissolve or pag-tunaw sa solute inside the cell, no? That is why pag dili siya makontrol, in the case of animal cells, the cell in hypotonic solution will lyse or will burst, mubuto siya. Okay? But before siya mubuto is mag-undergo pa siya og kini ang muhubag pa siya, no? Okay? Muhubag pa ang cell and then later on mubuto siya in animal cells, but not in plant cells because plant cells have unsa na cell wall. Okay, it can unsa na hold the pressure nga gina exert, no, sa large vacuole kasi large vacuole man ang kini ang punduhanan sa tubig inside the cell. So pag daghan og tubig ang large vacuole, it will exert a pressure, no, in the cell membrane. So yung pressure nga i-exert ni large vacuole in the cell membrane, pag daghan siya og water nga gina-hold, no, is kini ang gina-contain siya sa cell wall. That is why dili mo buto ang plant cell under hypotonic solution. Okay? So ang tawag ana nga kini ang phenomenon, okay, or kini ang pressure nga gina-exert sa large vacuole to the cell membrane of the plant cell is what we call the Turgor pressure. Okay, ang result ana mahimong turgid ang isa ka plant or gahi mo ng gahi ang plants because especially pag daghan sila og tubig no or sakto ang bisbis sa plants, turgid or normal ang kini ang plant cell. Okay, so in hypotonic solution again, water will come out inside the cell. The cell will gain much water. It will swell. Okay, it will swell or muhubag, no? HO. Natay HO sa hypotonic. No? Muhubag ang cell and it may burst in cases of the animal cells, but in plant cells, it will not burst. Okay? It will lyse or become turgid as in the example of plant cells. So we have here a practice question. No? So if you place an animal cell in pure water, which of the following will happen? Okay, so again, pure water, when say pure water, wala di lain nakasagol din ha, meaning walay sulyot nga nasa anak nga water. Okay, pure water lagi na siya, H2O lagi na siya. So that means si animal cell, inside sa animal cell, mas daghan ang sulyot inside the animal cell compared sa kini ang outside of the cell. So that means si cell here, si animal cell here, si animal cell here is under hypotonic na solution. Okay? So that means mas daghan ang tunawunon inside the animal cell. So that means pag daghan ang tunawunon in the animal cell, si water will go or move inside the animal cell. So mahitabo pag ang isa ka animal cell is naa siya sa hypotonic solution, it will swell or it will hypo meaning muhubag siya, no? It will swell and it may burst. Okay, so the correct answer here is letter C. Okay, so we are done with the passive na transport. Now let's talk about now the active transport. Okay, so active transport, as what I have said kanina, it uses energy to move solutes against their concentration gradient. Against their concentration gradient, that means bisan patuod og daghan na, no? For example, daghan na og kini ang daghan na og salt inside the cell, pag needed paghihapon, magpasulod paghihapon og salt inside the cell. Okay? So that means unlike sa passive transport nga it follows the concentration gradient, no, from higher concentration to lower concentration. Okay, so si active transport from lower concentration to higher concentration siya. So kabaliktaran siya. Okay? So again, it requires energy which is usually in the form of adenosine triphosphate. Okay? So examples ng active transport is the ion pumps, core transport, bulk transport, specifically yung endocytosis at saka yung exocytosis. Now let's talk about the bulk transport. As what I have said kanina, there are two types, the exocytosis and the endocytosis. Okay? So exocytosis, no? Exo meaning pagpagawas og material outside the cell. So it is carried by the secretory vesicles, no, which migrate to the plasma membrane to fuse with it and release their content. So mo ni nahitabo diri ano, it is the exocytosis. This is the secretory vesicle, no. So ang ginabuhat ni secretory vesicle is gina-fuse niya iyang membrane sa plasma membrane, and then after that is gina-release na niya ang iyang content, okay, outside the cell. So again, exocytosis is the release of cellular substances contained in secretory vesicles to the exterior or outside of the cell. Next, we have the endocytosis, or endo meaning inside or pagpasulod og materials inside the cell. Okay? Kabaliktaran siya ni exocytosis. So the cell takes in macromolecules by forming new vesicles from the plasma membrane. It can be pinocytosis, phagocytosis, or receptor-mediated nga endocytosis. So we have here, pag naay gusto ipasulod si cell, no, nga mga dagko nga mga molecules or macromolecules, no, inside the cell, mag-undergo si cell og endocytosis, in which here mag-invaginate no yung plasma membrane, mag-invaginate yung plasma membrane ng cell to enclose the macromolecules nga gusto niya ipasulod. Okay, as you can see here. Ayan. So pag enclose ani niya, it will create now a vesicle na. Okay, so it will be transported to the parts of the cell in which these macromolecules are needed. Okay, so again, endocytosis can be pinocytosis, phagocytosis, or receptor-mediated nga endocytosis. Phagocytosis, pag kini ang dagko na kayong nga mga material jud no ang ipasulod sa cell. Okay, so phagocytosis. Okay, pinocytosis naman pag katong dili kaayo dagko no, like the extracellular fluid nga ginapasulod sa inside the cell. So akong hinumduman ani sa kalahian ni phagocytosis o pinocytosis. Pag pinocytosis, gagmay no, gagmay nga mga materials ang gina-enclose sa cell membrane para ipasulod. Okay, pinocytosis. So the other type of endocytosis is the receptor-mediated endocytosis. So it happens during cell-to-cell communication. So we have here the receptor no, or the attachment site of the cell membrane, in which dinhi ga-attach ang mga signal molecule no. So signal molecules contains message that are interpreted by the cell. Okay?